When it comes to valuation, there is no doubt about the fact that valuation is a very, very important tool for the purpose of decision making by the corporates. So, all the decisions which are taken in the corporate, you would realize, uh, are based on the valuation. Sometimes these valuations may be obvious, sometimes these valuation may be on the back of an envelope, sometimes these valuations may be very hi-fi computations and calculations, but the valuation is always a must in any case whenever a corporate decision is being taken. So there is no doubt about that valuation under the Companies Act are extremely important. But at the same time, we should also remember, and this is all the more important for the new valuation professionals. For the new valuation professionals, it's more important. It's important for everyone that whenever you are doing valuation for any purpose whatsoever, uh, always make it a point that you have also taken into account the provisions of the Income Tax Act in the valuation that you have done. And why is that so? Because invariably you will notice that any valuation or any corporate decision which is taken by the corporates, it is going to have uh, tax implications also, and therefore, in order to avoid a surprise or a shock tomorrow coming from the income tax department, it is always better that whenever any valuation is being done, it is at that point in time itself looked at from the perspective of income tax valuation also. It is not necessary that the corporate has to obtain a formal report of valuation under the Income Tax Act. It is not necessary, but it is always better that you have the working and everything in place for your future reference in case if the need arises. And therefore, friends, today, besides all that we have done so far, we are also going to look at the valuations from the perspective of इनकम टैक्स एक्ट. तो इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में वैल्यूएशन से रिलेटेड क्या प्रोविजंस हैं, दैट इज व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू लुक एट टुडे. Number two, in case if the company is a listed one, we do not have to even mention any company which is listing on any of the exchanges that we have in this country. Now SEBI regulations become applicable, and since these SEBI regulations become applicable, it is absolutely necessary that whenever a company is doing any valuation, it also takes into account the regulations under the SEBI's Act. And that, of course, is a mandatory requirement as far as the listed companies are concerned. And therefore, today, besides the Income Tax Act, we will also understand the provisions relating to valuation under different SEBI regulations so that we become aware. And I'm sure as we progress in today's session, again, it has been my endeavor to structure the entire presentation in such a way so that the likely questions in the exam are addressed, and therefore you are able to answer them when you come across them in the examination. And last but not the least, whenever there is a transaction by the corporate world, any transaction which is done by a corporate world which involves any currency other than Indian currency, in that case you can just close your eyes and assume that FEMA becomes applicable to that corporate decision. It is as simple as that. तो जब भी कोई कंपनी कोई डिसीजन लेती है जिसमें कि या तो फॉरेन करेंसी के आने की पॉसिबिलिटी है, और या फिर आने की पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं, या तो फॉरेन करेंसी आने वाली है या फिर इंडियन करेंसी के एवज में इंडिया से फॉरेन करेंसी बाहर जाने वाली है, अगर ऐसा कोई ट्रांजैक्शन है तो मान के चलिए that FEMA becomes applicable. And if the FEMA becomes applicable, then the provisions of the FEMA also will need to be taken care of at the very outset. And therefore, friends, today we are also going to look at the different provisions under the FEMA Act and the regulations issued under FEMA by the Reserve Bank of India as to how do they impact valuations. So this, friends, is the plan that we have for today, and this is how we are going to start. So we will start with the SEBI, and I'm sure जब हम देखेंगे तो आपको मालूम पड़ेगा कि हम SEBI से क्यों start कर रहे हैं. Why are we starting with the regulation of SEBI? And then we come to the FEMA, and after completing the FEMA, then we will come to the Income Tax Act. And why do we start with the SEBI regulations? That is because when we will discuss about the FEMA provisions, you will notice that under the FEMA, at many places, the reference is given to the SEBI regulations. So the FEMA regulations very explicitly at many places mention that in a case of this kind, the valuations as per the SEBI will be done even under FEMA as well. And that is how we will start with the SEBI regulations and then come to the FEMA regulations and then finally come to the income tax regulations.